Mhm.
And this is Wrecked America. I'm the Hunter. Glad to have you folks back with us. And today we are glad to have our friend, Dr. Jimmy Jarvis, back with us. Dr. Jarvis, how you doing? Dr. Jimmy, how you doing?
Good day to you, sir. How you doing, Hunter?
All right, man, I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Just with everybody else, I'm just dealing with COVID-19.
Yeah.
What's the how's things with you in your world? With how you dealing with this stuff, man?
Pretty well. It's certainly scrambled up a lot of things, both personally and with the others that I try to help. So there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of folks in survival mode,
Hmm.
and it's important, I think, that we establish routines that work for us in the current environment, whatever that looks like for anybody. So I've been able to do that and encouraged others to, so we can weather this storm because we're in the middle of a storm.
Yeah. Things are opening back up different places in your neck of the
Mm,
woods, as you care to share. You don't have to give your specific location, but in your neck
mm.
of the woods, as things are opening back up and people are being allowed, asked, whatever, depending on, I guess, what their work situation is, to go back out. These can be somewhat life or death decisions.
Mm.
How's that pertain to you?
Well, I'm noting how much more aggressively people are driving.
Mm.
and and what that causes me to do is be a little more cautious myself. I need to take precautions anyway. Just I choose to manage risk now, so I'm not devil may care, if you will, attitude. But at the same time, the fact I think there are a lot of stir crazy people finally getting back out and stretching their
Mm.
emotional limb, so to speak, and some of that comes out in people's driving. At least that's what I'm noticing.
Yeah, I noticed the same thing. Yeah,
Mm.
I'm like you. My key mantra is whatever you just don't have to go to the hospital.
No, that's
Whether
right.
it's driving, walking, swimming, I don't care what.
let,
I'm just
let me be, yes, let me be sure not to end up on the front lines right now.
right,
I don't need to become part of the problem.
right,
I'd
right.
rather remain part of the solution.
Right. So
Yeah.
I
So
let him.
just
I let him go. I pull him to the side. You just go because I'm
you
not trying to end up on the front lines.
that's right. I mean, I've got important things to do, but it looks to me like you've got something more important. I will let
That's
you.
you.
I
Right.
will let you. And that's my work today.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm sure it happens in other aspects of life. I just happen to notice it in the driving
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. So I'm with you on that. I don't want no beef. Nothing. Yeah.
No, no.
Yeah. We're on the same page. Well, Dr. Jimmy, I sent you an article,
Hmm.
which was featured in, I guess, what was it, People Magazine,
Hmm.
an article about the interview with Jada Pinkett Smith, the famed actress and wife of Will Smith,
Hmm.
and talking about their marriage and challenges there, and but there was a specific piece of that. Well, let me just say, let me first ask, just as I know you had a chance to review it.
Yes.
Did you have any general thoughts about it?
Uh, well, certainly. It's it was, I think, more telling of a person than most such celebrity interviews are. Meaning that here was somebody who was willing to acknowledge that her old way of thinking wasn't working for her anymore, at least in one particular area, and that had to do with her primary relationship. I thought that was brave of her. I thought that showed us a little something about her. And the other parts of it were there was a thoughtfulness to how she spoke about this change in approach to this knowledge of her partner that speaks to, I'll say, the beginnings of wisdom. for that. I can say young lady.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it was useful. It was a useful read for me, certainly. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Um, it's interesting. You're right. It certainly was bravery or some courage and authenticity that we don't typically see in a lot of celebrity folk. But on the subject of change,
Yes.
which she spoke of and you spoke of, for our purposes, it took me in a different direction. I didn't feel. It didn't seem to me, it didn't occur to me that she was describing change as much as she was describing getting and becoming aware of the fact that there's a depth to all of us, which we've talked about, our characters,
Yes.
that and who 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 he is, who some of his characters are,
Hmm.
and maybe even some who her characters are, as she's had to find out in the context of this role of a marriage, which allows the true characters to surface.
Hmm.
And uh, I believe I'm quoting correctly. It was Shakespeare said that life is a stage and we're all actors.
Upon it,
And
yes.
yeah, and meaning we're playing roles. But there's a sense in which to pull off any role, there has to be a character that can play that role.
That can emulate this.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Right. Uh, and sometimes the needed character doesn't show up,
Sure.
or
It is
or
not
another one
available.
not available. Right. Or another character shows up that kind of uh, trumps that role. No pun intended.
Right.
In terms of that. But, yeah. So anyway, my point in going there was
Yeah.
about characters and I'm saying that to say I don't know as much as it's about change as it is about unearthing or allowing that which has been suppressed or repressed or whatever to show itself in ways that this is not a change. This is excavation. This is finding something that's there. I didn't know that shit was there. Who is this? I mean, you know what I'm saying? So this idea of change.
That would be called discovery.
Discovery. Thank you.
That would be called
Thank you,
discovery.
Dr. Jimmy.
Yes.
So right. So I guess I'm saying I'm pushing back on the idea of change as much as it is discovery. This ain't change. This is the real deal.
Anytime there is movement, there has to be change for there to be movement. The fact that you have a perspective different enough to discover something that was already there indicates that change implies a change had to occur so that you could be at the point of discovery. Otherwise, you never would have discovered it because you would have been as unaware as you were before the change occurred. So I'm speaking to the implication, what was talked about as a sign that change has had to occur in order to become aware.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not telling you. I think she was talking about change too. I'm saying so.
Okay.
So having said that,
yeah, there was a discovery or discoveries.
Yeah.
Not just by her, but she also alluded to discoveries by him.
Right. And one of the quotes that's a salient quote from it that stuck with me says, Peggy Smith said, I quote, that she's now going through the process of having to dissolve, as you said, change, all of those stories and all the ideas of will that she has built in order to truly understand her husband. So that's about her. What is it?
Yes.
What did this mean for you? Did you? How did? How was you? What did it do for you?
I could relate. she made a couple of statements in there, and I don't have the article in front of me as you do, about Will's state of mind, if you will, where it wasn't just what she didn't know or wasn't aware of, it was also about what he was not aware of. So she implied a discovery process on his part. She didn't say that he discovered aspects of himself. She simply implied it. So as I can totally relate to that with myself and my partner, where my partner could see changes that took a while for me to see. So she had to dissolve the stories that she had made up about me and us in order to see who I was. At the same time, I had my work to do as well. So in this story, I put myself less in Jada's position and more in Will's position. Okay, where my partner could understand things as a result of her perspective on me. It actually took me longer to understand some of those things in my own turn.
Discovery, in terms of discovery in the context of 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 marriage, and you shared some about what you've been through.
Yes.
So when it comes to discovery and characters that make you who you are, can you talk about that some? Not. So what we're talking about here is getting. We're talking about discovery. We're talking about going deeper than roles.
Mm-hmm.
We're going. When we last talked, we talked about some of the. I think we were at 15. You at age 15, Dr. Jimmy, and some of your behaviors. When we and we can go there in terms of but not just in terms of behaviors, but who the character Dr. Jimmy is as he's finding himself at that time.
Let's see.
And let me maybe help with that to say something that
okay.
or what I'm saying is about the character at that time. Of course, I'm then now kind of continuum. So the role of who you are in your life as an adult at this moment in time, pretty clear. Who is that character then?
Yeah, certainly more clear than it was then. Well, that character was still. I want to be as accurate as I can. That character was in a very different stage of discovery mode, where I was willing to discover some things about me, and I'd closed off certain areas of myself. So I was coming into my own, I'll say, intellectually, and found that there were many things I could do well in the intellectual sphere. I was also becoming I was never a great athlete, never claimed to be, and I don't recall having significant aspirations in that direction, but I was still coming to my own physically, at least more so as a young man. So, like I say, physically and intellectually, development was occurring that I could mark, that I was aware of, and that interested me, and I was willing to pursue. Emotionally, I was pretty closed down because I was very unaware of my emotions. I had done my best to close them off, as I've described before, and I was pretty good at that. So that was an area that I was not interested in exploring, and other than spirituality as an intellectual pursuit, I really didn't have any concept of it. So, I mean, I'm kind of describing the background of me. Um,
Is there any? Is there a particular? Yeah. Is there a particular um, experience? Let me share something with you.
sure.
I recall, and I'd say I was maybe I don't remember exactly, but maybe a few years younger
Uh-huh.
um, myself. And as we're talking, just came to me. I hadn't thought about this in years.
Mm.
Uh, but the point is, um, I I needed acceptance and approval. Um, and you mentioned sports, when you think about it, and and uh, and was I was not good enough to play on the school basketball team.
Hmm.
Uh, so I somehow, I don't know how I even did this, but I was around the same age. I was able to forge a birth certificate that made me younger, so I could play in a younger league and dominate.
Okay,
You know?
sure.
But that was the extent I went to.
Right. The lengths you went to.
Yeah,
Going, you
yeah.
may not have gone to any length at that point, but you go to certain lengths.
Late, right, early on.
I get
So
it.
yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sharing that. Anything like
yeah.
that in your life? Anything you can think about that shows what you're to show us concretely what is you're talking about?
Well, again, thinking of 15, 16, that kind of middle adolescence uh, area. I had some interesting and fairly unique experiences. I had been going to a college prep high school and doing fairly well. Uh, Better at some things than others, of course. And I spent my junior year of high school at an international school in Switzerland. Just 1 year there. It was my junior year of high school. I completed the junior year curriculum and the senior year curriculum within one school year. Took This was built on the British system, which has ordinary level exams and advanced level exams, O levels and A levels. I took a sufficient number of those exams to qualify for university in the British system, which is beyond the freshman level in the American college system. I was challenged intellectually and given the freedom to explore and expand at my own pace, and it turned out my pace was pretty fast. I had not had an experience like that, and all of a sudden I could burst forward, as I say, intellectually in a variety of areas, which I found fascinating. This was very empowering. Set me up for a lot of good things later on. Certainly, I was well rewarded for it with good grades. Um, but this was certainly an area worth, in my mind, worth pursuing. And I was, like I said, I was rewarded for it, and I sought out more of it as a result. I hadn't had that level of success before. I'd had some. I was in a pretty demanding environment, expected to do certain things, but this was new for me, and I can place the specific time frame for that. At the same time, because again, this wasn't in the United States. This was in Switzerland. So they had high school teams for a variety of sports. I certainly couldn't participate competitively on a major sport like what we know as soccer, their football, right?
Right.
But they had a less sophisticated program, I'll say, for basketball. Now, I wasn't good enough to play on the basketball team in the United States at the high school level, but in Switzerland, it's a different story. It turned out to be a one-trick pony. I'd been running cross country for a few years by that point, so I had very strong legs, and could jump uh, better than most of my age. And so, even though I was not particularly tall for my age, I could play center and out jump people who were close to a foot taller than myself. It surprised them to no end. And so I could block shots. I couldn't shoot. I wasn't very coordinated dribbling down the floor. I mean, there's a lot that I couldn't do, but by golly, I could outjump most people playing basketball over there then. It turned out when I came back for my senior year in high school to my old high school, I could do the same thing. They literally put me in the game at the start of the game for the jump ball. I would shock the other center. They eventually they would get the ball, and I would shock them again because I could block the shot. But I could. It was like them playing 5-on-4 against us, so that I would quickly be taken out, and they'd put a real center in. So, talk about one-trick pony.
Okay, I got you. Yeah.
Okay, so I had a couple of these experiences, that gave me some confidence, gave me some idea that there were things that I could do that I was interested in doing. So that was the beginning of a discovery process for me, if you will, and I began to build an identity around the things that I could do.
Was that same identity, that same character that was building identity then? Did it have a mischievous or another side to it? Were there other behaviors that confidence gave you that were?
It's I've got to be I got to be careful not to impute something that I don't believe was there. As I mentioned, I felt a strengthening and a maturing in an intellectual sense, and at least to some extent in a physical sense. But because of my lack of emotional maturity, I had shut off much of what was spontaneous and mischievous as being associated with the emotional side. And I was pretty careful to tiptoe around that and not engage in that, except in extreme privacy. And that's where the secret life and the addiction and those things came along. It was not done in confidence. It was done very specifically without confidence.
Was there an awkwardness? You talk about was there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, very very much so. There was my sexual acting out behaviors then and going forward were based on the fruits of my labor in the areas where I did develop skills and talents. I would then use that to literally compensate for my awkwardness and insecurities in my sexual practices and in my acting out behaviors. So I always paid for it, literally, because I had no confidence in my abilities.
If you can recall the voice of the awkward character, this acting out, you to use your term, acting out emotional and sexual things privately. What did that character, that aspect of you, of who you are, your personality, that aspect of who you are, how did you talk to yourself? How did that character talk to you? How did you talk to yourself? How did it, you were, I hear what you're saying, and we don't get into details of what, unless you want to, what you were doing, what you did, but how did you explain yourself to yourself?
Right. Sarcastically. That's the first answer.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
it,
That's
it's
interesting. That's interesting.
yeah, no, it was always in sarcasm, because I wasn't good enough. I knew I wasn't good enough, so I was always compensating for not being good enough in some area or other. Literally compensating,
Okay.
and my form of compensation was money.
You kind of moved on me. I thought you were going to say more about interesting about sarcasm. How you said that's how did it manifest in sarcasm? What was this? What was what? Maybe that's what how the money is. How I'm trying to stay with sarcasm. What was the sarcasm there then?
It was thinking that I could uh, perform a certain way, or find a certain satisfaction in any activity outside the realms that I was uh, that I could identify as being reasonably competent at to start with, and then it was a very accusing voice.
So the idea the idea that you could be good in other areas outside your main stick, so to speak, that you could dabble in these other things was evidence of the sarcasm. That was kind of sarcastically you could kind of throw yourself into doing this or doing that, and but and in doing so, is sarcasm. Do you when you're using sarcasm, as in not too serious? This wasn't serious. You weren't serious about it. Something you just dabbled in. Is that kind of at play, so to speak?
Well, it was yeah, it was that. Again, not putting too much into it, because after all, if it didn't work out, I didn't want to get too hurt by it. So it need in some part of my brain, it needed to be not too big a deal. So I would play it off for myself lightly. But at the same time, because I assumed I was not competent at it, I didn't want to invest too much of myself in it, um, for fear of getting hurt emotionally by it. So sarcasm was my way of not taking it too seriously.
So I'm intrigued by that you share this. Let's come to know you, Dr. Jimmy. Um, you have a lot of wit and humor, sarcasm. Does it have its roots back in this? Is there a connection between your wittiness today and the way you describe the sarcasm that you kind of not use? Is the wit we see today the fruit of that tree?
Um, uh, uh, yes,
Hmm.
definitely. It's at least grafted, I'll say. Okay, because in my recovery work, I had to allow myself to get past my sarcasm to uh, to begin to feel what I was attempting to avoid through the use of sarcasm.
Oh,
So the wit and the comedy that I attempt to use now, there's some sarcasm there, particularly when it has to do with certain frustrating topics. Uh,
ah,
okay,
uh-huh,
where I am in less control, more
ah,
sarcasm will come out. For example,
ah.
okay,
Very good. Yeah,
how's that?
Dr. Jimmy. Yeah, yeah. It's
Okay.
interesting.
But I also have to learn to put down the sarcasm so no one gets hurt too,
Mhm,
including myself,
mhm.
because sarcasm is a knife I'm holding by the blade.
Hmm. Wow, Steve. Could you say more on if I can push you more on
Mm.
getting beyond it
Sure.
that they because it's like there's a there's a there's something there
Mm.
like if I can use the term use sarcasm so you didn't have to go there?
Yeah. I was using sarcasm as a way of answering questions so that there wouldn't be a follow-on question. So I could divert attention to something else. So I could be witty or appear to be, and deflect any attempts at vulnerability on my part. But what I found was that the sarcasm, at the same time as deflecting somebody else, also deflected me. And that's what I mean by holding a knife by the blade, is I had to realize that I was cutting myself with the use of sarcasm. I was abusing myself. And I had to learn that I didn't have to abuse myself anymore. That took a while.
Mm.
This goes back to earlier feelings. The implication of feeling lonely when I was 4.5 was that I was, in being alone, I was worth less. And if I'm worth less, I have no business being here. So loneliness came to mean existence, or lack of existence, if in this case, non-existence. And I had to banish that in a very childlike way, very early, just banish it from my thinking. And in a childlike way, I did that by shutting down emotions. And sarcasm was a survival technique for avoiding what I was actually feeling. And I found, because it could be used socially, that it was a good way of fencing and fending off attention to things where I felt vulnerable.
The statement you just made, you didn't deserve to be here, didn't need to be here. How did you get there? How did you make that leap from you're talking about loneliness?
Mm-hmm. If you recall from the first time we talked, Hunter, mm-hmm. that I talked about that event when I was 4.5, where I was just mm-hmm. shooed away, mm-hmm. and I felt useless and needless to everybody around me at that point.
Mm-hmm. I got you.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And that called into question my very existence, which was
right. And you vowed never to feel not to feel that way again.
Precisely. That's why I describe it as existential. That 4-year-old could not have thought in those terms, but it thought in terms of survival, and this was opposite of survival. So we're not going to feel this ever again. So it was very deep, and like I say, not that the adults in the life intended that, but that's what a 4-year-old picks up, and we have to learn these things about ourselves. This is part of discovery. This is part of Will Smith has to go through, whether he has or not. Sounds like he's started to do some work.
And we're going to pick up here next time. But that you is going to come forward, right? That you come forward with that understanding, at least in that point, not to go feel that, right?
I can go there.
No, but at the time, no, I'm saying
I couldn't at the time.
Right,
and not at the time.
Right, and going forward from that point, that was That was the mantra. That was the mindset. That was it.
For the next 50 years.
Damn.
For 50 years.
Damn.
Yeah. Anyway.
And just to set the table on that.
Sure.
So then, with that being the case, there can be all sorts of stuff happening, but if I understand correctly, you ain't feeling it. It can go on over here, and that can happen in that.
That's right. And let me put it this way. I think that I was feeling it, but I was not walking on the river denial. I was walking in it. Okay. So there was a whole treasure chest of emotions going on. And I've been able to reach back and touch some of them through my personal work. But that's a continuing source of discovery for me and for my partner.
Thank you, Dr. Jimmy. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Hunter.
And we'll pick up. We got it. You said you laid it out. When we pick back up, we in denial. We walking in denial.
We're gonna start out wet, and we're gonna figure out what to do from there. How's that?
We're from there. Okay.
All right. Hey,
thank you, my brother. All right.
Thank
you, Dr. Jimmy. You be well. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Bye-bye.